Hello and welcome to 50/50 Day. I am Sawyer Steele, one of the co-creators of 50/50 Day and behind the film 50/50. And I have the absolute incredible honor of interviewing Jennifer Finney Boylan. I'm going to give a very brief background for those of you who don't know her. Jenny is an Anna Quindlen Writer in residence at Barnard College at Columbia University and previously my professor at Colby College. Her 2003 memoir, She's Not There, was the first best-selling book by a transgender American. And she has over a dozen other amazing books. They're all amazing and hilarious and totally page-turners, including her just-released Long Black Veil. Just hit the shelves a couple weeks ago. Is that right?
That's right.
Jenny's about to take off on tour, doing book signings around New York and across the country over the next few weeks. She's also the first openly transgender co-chair of GLAAD's National Board of Directors. So, welcome, Jenny. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Sawyer, and happy 50/50 Day, everybody, and greetings from high atop the weather observation station here in New York City, where we are celebrating this wonderful event and working to bring about gender equity, gender equality, and representation of everybody.
That is exactly right. Awesome. So I have to start by painting the picture a little bit. So Jenny and I go back about 15 years. Jenny had just returned. I was a senior in college at Colby College. Jenny had just returned from sabbatical and came out publicly as transgender. I was freaking out myself and realizing that I was transgender. And I walked in. We're in the middle of a campus filled with white, mostly heterosexual people up in the middle of Maine. And I walked into Jenny's office and I said, "Hi, I'm trans. Can we talk?" And you said, "Sit down. Nice to meet you."
Sit down.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Here's your free toaster.
So we started a project where I read basically as much as I could get my hands on about everything there was out there trans, including She's Not There had just come out that year. And an amazing memoir that everybody should read. And then we would talk. And we would have lunch and just talk. And what I find so fascinating now, reflecting on it 15 years later, is that when I was 21 and we were having those conversations, I was physical transition and I'm never gonna buy into any binary. This is my fight. I'm fighting gender for my whole life. I'm not gonna subscribe to any of this, male or woman. I'm gonna be in the middle somewhere. I'm gonna live this trans life. And I remember so clearly said, I worked so hard for this. I just want to be a woman and I want to write. And here you are now at the forefront of this entire movement of transgender rights, in the spotlight all the time, the go-to voice, the go-to comedian and face and author and storyteller, and part of leading the national organization. And I'm living in the burbs and
Right.
Not fighting the fight in the same way that I thought I was going to 15 years ago. And so I think there's a lot of really interesting layers there.
Yeah, so one thing that we learn is that even, certainly if gender can change over the course of a life, how you identify as transgender can change over the course of a life. And that's perfectly cool. And even if a person goes from identifying in a real gender non-conforming way when they're 21, that doesn't mean that's how they're going to identify when they're 35, and it also doesn't mean at the same time that there's anything less valid about a gender non-conforming or genderqueer identity. I want to make sure that we're not implying that that's a thing that's a phase, because I know many people, including people in their 70s, who celebrate a genderqueer and non-binary identity. As for me, I think I might be a little bit less concerned with being a woman in other people's eyes all the time, which isn't to say, my womanhood is not a matter of debate. It's not something that I'm not going to participate in a clever think piece conversation about my humanity. But I can say that I don't feel that my gender identity is up for grabs anymore. I don't feel quite as fragile and vulnerable about it and as defensive about it. So I'm a woman, and that's wonderful. But let's do this 10 years from now or next year and see where we're at.
Annual event. That'll be fascinating. So here's a question. Is there something to it where to go from experiencing a place of privilege in the world to going to being in having an underrepresented voice, did you feel some sort of compulsion to put yourself out there more because of that?
Well, it certainly, I don't want to say it came as a shock as a person who enjoyed male privilege up till the age of 40 or so, but as someone who also identified as a feminist, it was not a shock to me that on the other side of transition, I would suddenly be in a more vulnerable and unequal place. So I knew that would happen, and yet I can only say it's different when it's you, when you're the one who's being talked over, when you're the one whom your other colleagues don't quite take as seriously. But the work that I do now is focused on storytelling, and there's a lot of ways of bringing about gender equity, and I'm sure that as part of this day-long wonderful event, you're hearing about lots of strategies. The one that I've employed and the one that I will urge people to embrace if they feel that way is storytelling. You should tell your story because storytelling brings about visibility, and visibility brings about acceptance. So if you can, and what does it mean to tell your story? Well, certainly if you can publish a book or get yourself on television, fantastic. But if you can't do that, have a blog, upload something to an online site like Medium or Refinery. So find a place where people can hear your story, because my mother used to say, it's impossible to hate anyone whose story you know.
Absolutely, and I think you and I have both been known to quote the same quote of tell your story tell your own story because everyone else is already taken. Something like that. Oh,
it's Oscar Wilde. Yeah. Be yourself. Everyone else
is already taken.
Yeah.
And I also say tell your story because it makes room for everybody else's.
Well, yeah. I think one of the problems that we've had, certainly in the transgender sphere, is that people who don't know anything about us think that we are this monolith. People think that there's one way of being trans, whereas in fact, if you've met one transgender person, you've met one transgender person, and the great diversity of our community is and ought to be its strength, by which I mean genderqueer people, transsexuals, transgender, drag kings and queens, gender nonconforming people, it's a huge spectrum of people who are experiencing gender in different ways, and they all have very different stories to tell, and we don't always agree with each other on what the guiding principles of our journey ought to be. But that's the strength. And in fact, I would say that that's also a thing that we have in common with straight and cisgender people. There are a lot of different ways of being human, and we need to open our hearts to all of them.
Yes.
Oh, can I tell you something? Can I show you something, sir? So one thing that happened to me last year is that I lost a lot of my hearing. I've been trying to learn ASL a little bit haltingly. This is the old ASL symbol for trans. It used to be like that. So sex, which is this, and then flipped around. That's the way we used to say transgender. Sex backwards. Here's the new symbol. And what that means, here I'll stand up a little. So it's like a little flower over your heart. It comes out like this, the petals open, and then it goes back into your heart with the petals facing in the right direction.
Oh, how did that change? Who did that? Who was behind that?
The wonderful thing about ASL is that it's a language that's constantly changing. And so to me, that's the journey that we're on. And it's not just transgender people. It's,
everyone.
Anyone, there's no one watching this who does not now or at some point has not had a something in their heart that cannot flower because it's being kept inside. You bring it out into the light, the petals open, you put it back in your heart in the right way. Cool, right?
That is so cool, and a perfect segue into my next question. And we only have a couple more minutes, and I have more things I really want to get
lightning round.
But so mentorship is a really large thread in the film 50/50, and the importance of mentorship. And I was so fortunate to have you on my campus in that moment, and you opened your arms and your mind and heart to me, and I'm so forever grateful. And even though we haven't been in touch over years, you've been this figure to me that I could always that I always knew was there if I needed, and was just a guiding force out there. And I feel like you are that person for so many people. And
killing me.
Where is the line of how much you're so busy, and this was hard for you to schedule in, and you're still here. So where is the line where you draw? Do you just keep giving? And
you give, and then you give some more.
Yeah.
I have to say, I mean, I was kind of, for me, the line is between being an advocate and being a teacher. So, I mean, my primary gig is that of an English teacher. So, trying to talk to people about ideas and to get them to understand those ideas in their heart is it's a thing that comes naturally to me. Well, it didn't come naturally at first, but it's a thing I learned how to do. I will say I was really scared when I started out. It took me forever just to say the word transgender out loud. I was so full of fear. And slowly I kept trying again and again until that fear grew. It became so much less that I was able to live my life without fear. And if you're afraid that fear is shutting you down, if it's shut you down once, don't let that be the final action. Get back in there, because eventually you will prevail.
And my last question is really around your new book, The Long Black Veil, and tying that into a recent op-ed piece that you did, which was about privacy versus secrecy, right? And so there's a thread in your new book about sort of a past that the family is not all that aware of. You speak your 1 minute on what is the combination between those two things, and why you think it's so important to get that message out into the world.
Well, we have things that are private. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're ashamed of them. That doesn't mean that they're a secret, but it means that they're no one's business except our own. And in order to be understood, in order for people to accept us, should not require unveiling things that belong only to us. On the other hand, secrets can be a source of shame, and that really can break people down in time. So all I can say is you have to find your courage to live your truth out in the open. And in Long Black Veil, I think those characters do just that.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I love you, Jenny Boylan. Thank you.
I love you, Sawyer Steele. This is a wonderful day. I'm so proud to be part of it.
Thank you. And we've got a great interview up next. And find Jenny's book out there and see her on the road over the next few weeks and more.
Yeah, I'll be on the West Coast starting the week of November 16, 17, 18. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and the Tattered Cover in Denver. I'll see you all then.
Excellent. Okay.